Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning into our first ever hour-long episode of The Hook. We'll be talking about everything we missed over the break while we were away. Keep it here. It's The Hook.
Feels good. Here he did great.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for tuning into our first episode of this spring 2014 semester. I'm Jeff Barker. Alongside me today, Julian Owens, Harry Hoffman, Joshua Blunt. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. How are you doing, Jeff?
Doing wonderful. Thank you, guys. Well, let's get right into it. With the last BCS National Championship took place January 6th with the Auburn Tigers facing Heisman Trophy winner Jameis Winston and the Florida State Seminoles. With a commanding 21-3 lead, Auburn looked to get the SEC their 8th straight BCS game, or the BCS National Championship win, but Jameis Winston had thoughts otherwise, rallied the troops, and put the team on his back, and Florida State went on to win the game 34-31. So, guys, what did you take away from this game, and what do we expect to see from Jameis next season?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't take that much from this game. I knew Auburn would come in, definitely the toughest opponent Florida State has had to face all season, and I thought Jameis was one of the best quarterbacks in the game, and he proved it with that last drive. They got down 21-3, but he rallied his troops, and in that second half, they came out firing. Obviously, the fake punt was probably a turning point, and he really did his job and, got the winning touchdown. So, I thought it was a great game, but there was nothing that really shocked me. Maybe the fast start that Auburn really got off to, and the fake punt definitely surprised me, but other than that, Jameis Winston got the job done.
Yeah, Harry, I like how you mentioned the fake punt. It's interesting to see, in the second quarter, we really think it was the turning point right there.
Right.
I'm going to agree with you. It's just rare to see something like that, and Jameis really did put the team on his back, though. And I think he came out at the nerves finally got to him, I think, for the first time this season. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman, Heisman winner. I mean, the expectations are unbelievable, national championship. But I think he really lived up to it. But I did think it was over when Trey Mason ran in that long touchdown run where he thought he was the Heisman winner there.
No, it was definitely a great ball game. As Harry mentioned, Auburn was the best team Florida State had faced all season long, and I think they struggled a bit with that at first. Definitely the fake punt turned things around for Florida State. But a lot of people don't mention how poorly the Florida State offensive line played. Jameis barely had any time back there. He was scrambling around a lot, and for him to step up and take control of the team and then lead a drive like that down the field for the touchdown last minute. Truly impressive for a redshirt freshman quarterback. So I honestly look for Jameis and Florida State to repeat next year for the BCS, not the BCS National Championship, but the college football playoff.
Joshua, we'll get into that later.
We'll get into that later. But, guys, I got to agree with all of you. The second quarter, that fake punt was a very good momentum starter. But I think that really did give the spark for this Florida State team was that kickoff return that Levante Whitfield got in the late of the fourth quarter. That really did give them the lead in the fourth quarter. Now, everybody thought that Trey Mason was going to, after that 37-yard run that he had, everybody thought the game was over. But, like we said, we can't do without it. The Heisman Trophy winner is the Heisman Trophy winner for some apparent reason. Jameis Winston put the team on his back, got the last-minute touchdown to seal the game up for Florida State, and I hope to see them go into the college playoffs next year and do some damage.
Hey, look, all I got to say is if we going to do it, Dan, we going to do it big. Love Jameis Winston. Kid's got a lot of fire.
Yeah.
He did. I mean, also to think about it, nobody thought that Florida State was going to win. How bad they struggled in the first half, especially without the last 5 minutes of the game. I mean, first half they did horrible against this Auburn team.
But it can be said, though, Jameis does remind people of a certain quarterback who used to play at the University of Texas. I think
There it goes.
There it is.
Well, he won a Heisman that he didn't, so that's a good thing. Now, with all the BCS bowls this past year, there were a lot of upsets and great games that were competitive to the end, and some games you just thought that should have even lit a spark, especially with Johnny Football's great comeback in the Chick-fil-A Bowl, Stanford and Michigan State's competitive play in the 100th Rose Bowl. Michigan State won it, and the disappointing loss with Texas in the Alamo Bowl against Oregon. So, guys, including all these 2014 BCS bowl games, which bowl game out of the 16-year span for the BCS was your best one?
I'm going to throw it way back. I'm going to go to 2001, Miami against The Ohio State University. Miami had Ken Dorsey, Andre Johnson, Willis McGahee. That team was loaded. They were undefeated. It was an era of just tremendous football. They hit harder than anybody. One of the best teams probably in the entire BCS era. That game went to double overtime, and Maurice Claret and Ohio State pulled it out.
Don't forget Craig Krenzel.
Yeah, of course. I was really young. I was really young, and
Also-
I still remember that game.
Don't forget the controversial pass interference call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff.
That's what that game
That's
was
what the
known
game
for.
known
Yeah.
for, you know. It was a great game, though.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
I think
Josh, what do you have?
the obvious selection obviously is 05 or 06 USC Texas, but for argument's sake, I'll go ahead and say Boise State versus Oklahoma in a truly fantastic game. Boise State's first BCS appearance, David versus Goliath. Really came down to the wire, the hook and ladder to score on the last play of regulation, and then of course the toss, halfback pass to get the 2-point, the touchdown. Then everyone's favorite play, Statue of Liberty for the score. Just phenomenal game. David taking down Goliath, proving that the little guys can play with the powers of college football.
Well, my argument is not as close as yours, but I got to give it the best one. It was the 2008 All-State BCS National Championship game. Number 1 Ohio State versus number 2 Louisiana State University. This game made me go and was like I want to play for that LSU Tigers football team. Les Miles got in there with Matt Flynn, dominated the game. Most people thought that LSU was going to lose this game against the top Ohio State that had been going to BCS bowls and trying to win them for the past couple of years. And Matt Flynn came and dominated the game, especially in the fourth quarter. And it just showed me that that LSU defense can stop anybody that they wanted to that year. That was an amazing year run for LSU.
So why didn't you go to LSU then, man?
I didn't play football, so I can't. Of course.
You didn't have that choice. You guys mentioned kind of the obvious ones when we talked about the I guess it was the 2006 Rose Bowl where Texas won the championship. I'm gonna go a year before that when Texas took on Michigan in the Rose Bowl, a 38-37 game. It's my favorite. I mean, another great game by VY. Just added to Mac's legend, added to VY's legend. 38-37. I was actually at the game, so it was awesome to be there. 38-37 game-winning field goal. That's what I have.
Must have been fun.
How fun was that game?
That was an awesome game. I was lucky to be at that game.
And to Josh's point, when Boise State beat Oklahoma, I think that was a turning point for non-BCS schools. It proved that they can come in and compete with the best, and for a lot of teams after that, including Boise State, they were always in the running for getting to a BCS game. So I thought that was big for them. Well, the BCS era has come to an end, and college football is heading towards a 4-team playoff starting next season. Guys, this is going to be really interesting. What do you make of this transition to a playoff, and might it expand in the future?
In a perfect world, I think I would personally like to see a 6-team, maybe where the first 2 teams get byes, so we can get past the top 5 and
Right.
all the top 5 teams get in there. Because I think that's fair. I think if you're in the top 5 at the end of the season, then you definitely deserve a shot at the national championship, or even an 8-team. But I'm really excited for this 4-team playoff, and it's really going to be interesting to see about the selections committee, the 13-man selections committee that they have. It's going to be interesting to see how they work. And there's some athletic directors of teams that you may see in there. I mean, Arkansas AD's in there, Barry Alvarez from Wisconsin, Pat Hayden from USC. Those are teams that could be in the mix for that. So that could be a potential conflict of interest. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree with you on that. This is gonna be the first time in almost 16 years. In a while that computers aren't gonna be the ones selecting who's gonna be in the BCS Bowl and who's gonna be doing this and that in the top 4. And the problem is gonna come in that you have these teams that, like we were talking about with the BCS National Championship last semester. These teams that they're undefeated. They're almost like Boise State when they came in and had their run. They're undefeated, but you have teams like Alabama. You have Florida State that probably got 1 loss throughout the whole season, but they're gonna get in the top top 4 rather than these undefeated teams. That might be the problem. I would like to see it expand to maybe even 8 teams. Not this year, maybe not in 2 years in time, but by maybe 5 years. You can see a more expanded game go in, and I think it'll be more exciting to see 8 teams instead of just top 4 just going at it.
You know, Julian, one thing we haven't talked about with the potential 8-team playoff is you'd probably have to knock down maybe a non-conference game.
Non-conference game.
But I wouldn't mind that because then Alabama wouldn't get to play Appalachian State or something like that. So I would be completely okay with that as well.
Right.
What do you guys think?
I definitely think I like the move to the playoff system. I mean, FCS has done it for a while now with amazing results, so I don't see why it can't transition to the college game. I think where you'll have some dissension in there is when teams have the same records. So I wouldn't mind a play-in game of sorts, maybe a wild card if you want to call it that, where teams 12-1, compete, or not 12-1, whatever record they would be, compete for that final spot. But I definitely like the move. And for the selection committee, I don't think there will be too much craziness there. I think you say top 5 teams, you pretty much have to go by that. I think what it mostly will be about TV money, contracts, where games will be played. Like, of course, Dallas is the hot spot now, up there at Jerry World. So I think it will be more of that whole business side rather than putting who are the best teams in the country.
Yeah, I like Jeff's point going to 6 teams, because if you look at past years, once you get to about 7, 8, 9, 10. Most of those teams have 2, and some of the good SEC teams like LSU somehow end up with 3 losses and a 10 or 11 ranking. So I like to go to 6 because then you'll get probably only 1, if that, undefeated, and then the rest will have 1 losses. And then after that, if you have 2, I don't really see you getting into the playoffs. So I like 6. It would be a great playoff system, and I'm looking forward to what it has in store.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if they can maintain sort of that bowl atmosphere and keep those games relevant.
Yeah.
All right, well, coming up next, we'll give a full analysis of Mac Brown's departure and Charlie Strong's arrival. Stay here, it's The Hook.
Hello and welcome back to The Hook. And as we all know, a Longhorn legend resigned as head coach for the Horns nearly 2 weeks before the Alamo Bowl. The Mac Brown era was a great one, if not the best in Texas sports history. In his 16 years, Brown won over 100 games with the program, coached 3 Heisman Trophy candidates, 1 winner, a national championship, numerous bowl wins, and more. Guys, what was your favorite Mac Brown memory?
Who's going to start here?
Mine's a little bit recent. Mine's the OU game from this year.
Okay.
I thought
like
the
that.
way he bounced back from that 1-2 start and his job on the line, he was, his seat was real hot. And so the way he came into Dallas and basically dominated that entire game, leading his guys in, getting that win, which was huge, and really set the stage for them to carry in the rest of Big 12 play. So I thought that game was huge, and the way he got his team ready to play was real big. So I'm going to keep it a little bit of recent.
Yeah, I'll get to mine in a second, but Harry, I'm going to expand on that. I think this season may even have been his best coaching season, of his entire 16-year career at Texas, or entire coaching career at all. I mean, just the way he handled everything, just completely being disrespected by the media, the fans. I mean, being booed when his charity ad came on the big screen,
Not a lot of guys would have been able to handle that.
Yeah,
right?
but he handled it with class, and I think this whole, I just want to point out that I think this season may have been his best coach season, especially with Case at quarterback. And, there were a lot of misfits, a lot of injuries. But my favorite memory is going to be the 2001 Holiday Bowl. Major Applewhite led the Horns to a victory. They were down 16 in the fourth quarter. It was 36-20.
Yes.
Major brought them all the way back. Actually, a last-second drive, too, after Washington, led by Cody Pickett, had gone down and scored. That's going to be mine. It was just an awesome game. I remember watching that on the couch as a Texas fan growing up, and it was great.
Well, I gotta go not further than yours, but I gotta go further than Harry's. Most people don't even remember it. It was the 2009 Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. It was probably one of my very first bowl games I actually was really into, with Colt McCoy at quarterback doing his thing. He actually did a phenomenal job against one of the hottest teams, again, Ohio State, against that freshman Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor, who's now doing great for your Oakland Raiders team right now. And he just came back, rallied his team up, get a late pass to Crosby to get the score to win the game. It was just a phenomenal game to me, and I'll always cherish that memory.
Quan Cosby, what an underrated legend.
Very, very underrated. And Jeff, I've forgotten about the Holiday Bowl against Washington, man. Wow, great memories. But for me, my favorite Mac Brown memory comes after his national championship win in the locker room when he told his players, guys, don't let this be the best moment of your life. Don't let this define your life. I think that just says is a great testament to what man Mack Brown was. He cared about his players, knew there was more to life than football, and just ran his program with such grace and class that he tried to impress upon the players. So that's my favorite Mack Brown memory.
Yeah.
That speech is getting me pretty pumped up.
Yeah.
Right now. About it.
Thinking about it now, I'm getting pumped up.
I mean, most things that Mack Brown would say in his locker room, or most things he would tell his players, you just sat there and be like, wow, that was just phenomenal coaching. And you would have been happy to see somebody, one of us, probably play for Mack Brown, but
Yeah, I would have been something.
That would have been awesome. Well, we're going to talk about Mack Brown's last game a little bit. In his last game as the head coach, Texas faced Oregon in the Alamo Bowl. They were a little bit overmatched. Few had them pulling the upset, and all those people were correct. Texas lost 30-7 after Mariota looked like he just couldn't be stopped at all. He was running all over that. Texas was just struggling with running quarterback once again. Looked like BYU all over again. Case, 2 pick sixes. What did you guys take away from this performance and just the performance of the team overall?
watching the game firsthand at the Dome was horrible. I'm gonna be completely honest. The first 50 seconds
Were you
of the
there?
game, yes, I was there. First 50 seconds of the game, you hear all the orange is just pumped up. The whole stadium looked like it was orange, and you see it pumped up. As soon as Case threw that pick six, all the fans were like, "Well, this is how it's gonna end, huh? This is how it's gonna end," and exactly that's how it ended. It just showed how poorly the team was going to play for Mack Brown. You thought they would play better. You thought they were going to do better. Only 5 of those 12 drives that Texas had was plus 20 yards. In the last drive, Tyrone, looked better than Case ever did the whole game, and it was so horrible to see something like that.
Yeah, it was awful, to put it nicely. I think the most interesting stat that I saw was that Case McCoy threw for more interception yards than actual yards in the last 2 games.
58 passing yards.
That pretty much says it all. You can't win a lot of ball games when you're doing that.
I mean, Oregon didn't even need an offensive touchdown.
Seriously,
Their defense could have won the game for them.
Yeah, and
could have needed every time and won.
I'll give Texas a little credit. Their defense played, pretty well against that high-powered offense. But from the get-go, there was very little chance that this team was going to win, and they got a lot of work to do this offseason.
Yeah.
Before the game, I was getting sentimental thinking about Mack Brown and all that he had done for the program and his huge wins. And then watching the game, you kind of realize why he's resigning and why he's leaving the school. Texas didn't come out at all how you expected them to. And granted, having Case as your quarterback doesn't give your team a lot of chance and a lot of hope because he played poorly. But what I also didn't like is how they put in Swoops for a drive or two, took him out, put him in for another drive. There's no consistency. It seemed like no decisiveness was being made on the team, which seemed to plague the Texas program for a couple of years now.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Tyrone coming into this year, and I was happy when they put him into the game for the first time this season. But then the use of him later on, I thought was just
horrible.
I don't know what was going on. I thought you might give him some packages to run because physically he's one of the best athletes on the team, and he's incredibly hard to bring down. So I don't know why he wasn't in games later in the season or just more throughout the game. So I thought the use of Tyrone was real poor. Even though I was happy to see him on the field as a freshman.
Yeah, and if you look at the scoreboard, 30-7, you'd think Texas had no chance the entire time.
Yeah.
But guys, I think the turning point, and let me know if you agree with me, was Tyrone came in the game, dropped a dime right into the hands of Mike Davis. Could be argued that there was a little bit of a PI there. He was kind of pulled off his route a little bit. But I think that was the turning point. Just for the whole performance overall, I think it was kind of indicative of Texas's season. You kind of live and die by the magic of Case. The magic of Case in OU. They live by that, and they won them the game. And they died by it with the 2 pick sixes in this one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, 6 days after the Alamo Bowl, Texas Athletic Director Steve Patterson and Texas President Bill Powers revealed to the nation their new Texas head coach, Charlie Strong. From his previous position was head coach at Louisville. He turned them from absolutely not even being on TV to the national spotlight after upsetting Florida in the 2012 Sugar Bowl. Guys, what do you think of this selection? Was it a good selection for Longhorns, and do we see change coming into this team?
Yeah, I love it. I had followed Charlie Strong for a couple years now, and what he's done at that program. I think the big thing was he was able to go down to Florida and get recruits to go play for him.
He's in Bridgewater from Florida,
up in
right?
Louisville, yeah. And now that he's at Texas, boy, if he can keep some of those Florida kids and then you start getting Texas talent, that's big. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So I love the way he recruits, and I just love the way his team came out with a fire and an edge to them, something that Texas has been missing. So to see that on the sideline and a guy who can really relate to his players, outside of football, I think that's huge as a football coach. So I love the hire, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do.
Yeah, Hoffman, I will say you were the first guy I heard to say Charlie Strong when Mac resigned. You were even saying it before. If Mac resigns, we got to get Charlie Strong. Yeah. So you were calling it along.
I hope he backs me up. I hope he backs me up on this.
Yeah,
I really hope so.
And I think he will. You mentioned that he was able to go from Louisville, Kentucky, to get not a ton of talent there, to get guys from Florida like Bridgewater. So I think if he's able to close the borders, as he said in his speech, recruit Texas very well, and instill all the rules that that we heard of, the supposed new rules and all that, I think it'll add some discipline to the team that Mac kind of lost, unfortunately at the end of his career. Then if he can dip into Florida and get some talent, that's something that Texas almost never did.
Right.
I think Ricky Williams wasn't even recruited by Mac, and I think he's the last big-time guy that he had out of state.
Yeah, definitely. I would say I was a little surprised when people were surprised when Charlie Strong was named coach. I think after Nick Saban, Charlie Strong was the guy for me. A great coach, defensive-minded, disciplinarian, something that the Texas program really needed. So I look for big things to come from him, and especially in recruiting Florida and Georgia spot-picking players who can fit the program well. Definitely a great hire for the Texas Longhorns.
And another thing too, sorry, Julian, before you go, he's coached under Ron Zook, Lou Holtz, Urban Meyer, some
He has 2 titles under Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
Right? So he's been there. He's done it.
That's what I was just about to say. He's been under the prestige of very renowned head coaches. That's what he was talking about in his speech, his inaugural speech with Bill Powers and Patterson. He was just talking about he was under the helm of so many great coaches, and I think that's what helped him in Louisville. That mindset that he was with Urban Meyer when he won those 2 championships. He's just a great defensive mind. He knows how to get the players riled up. He turned. Like I was just mentioning, he turned a Louisville team that's just the laughing stock into a national spotlight, upsetting Florida in the Sugar Bowl. Most people didn't even see that happen.
You're right. They demolished them.
Florida was number 3.
Right.
People were arguing that Florida should have been playing for a national championship that year. Louisville was 21 and knocked them off.
Louisville dominated. Now, I'm not saying like they just played and just beat them. They dominated that game. So I see Charlie Strong actually doing some great things for Texas coming up in the coming years.
I agree.
And he also knows he has to win now, too, which is great.
Absolutely, that's the expectation.
Oh, well, coming up next, we have more football talk as well. Stay tuned. This is The Hook.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're going to talk about some little NFL. This week, Sunday coming up, we have 2 of the biggest NFL matchups, in my opinion, to come up for the NFC and the AFC Championship. First, we're going to start off in the AFC Championship. Tom Brady will face Peyton Manning in the playoffs for the 4th time in their storied careers. Peyton is coming off possibly one of the best seasons ever in his life, breaking records, passing touchdowns, and passing yards. But there's still doubt whether he'll be a clutch playoff quarterback or not. So, guys, the ultimate question is, what is the biggest story coming into this Sunday? Peyton Manning without a Gronk and potentially a lack of overall receivers in this game, or Peyton Manning potentially having the best season ever but losing it?
Yeah, guys, the biggest storyline out of this weekend is that if Tom Brady wins this game, he's the greatest quarterback of all time.
Whoa!
Will have been to 6 Super Bowls.
But how many of them has
8
he won?
AFC champions.
How many of them has
he's
he
won?
won?
Yeah, he hasn't won since 05.
Exactly. He has not won since 05, when you can basically say when the Patriots defense was at their peak.
It was okay.
Dude, I'm going to agree with Harry here because if he wins without Gronk, obviously without Aaron Hernandez.
Dude, he is a wide out.
Yeah, his three best receivers are like 5'10".
Yes.
And 4 shorter.
Like, yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like,
It's amazing what he
dude,
has
they have
done
Shane
with the team.
Vereen.
Absolutely.
Shane Vereen's playing more wide receiver than.
Look, Peyton Manning should win.
Well, let me ask you
but
this,
it's Tom
Josh.
Brady.
Who is the best quarterback then if it's not Tom Brady? Because
If it's not Tom Brady, You're saying best quarterback of all time.
Of all
At
time.
least
I'm
for
not
me,
saying
I'm not
best
agreeing.
quarterback
I'm
of
not
all
agreeing for all
time.
time, maybe of our generation.
Man,
My
our generation? Okay, fine. I can take that as best of all time. Absolutely not.
But no one's even come close
Dude,
to
he's
6
top.
Super
He's
Bowls.
top
But
three.
all right, you can go to Super Bowls, but it matters if you win them. If you go to 7 Super Bowls and you don't win them,
Okay, but we're saying, like,
He's
assuming,
zero.
but we're speculating. We're assuming if he wins
If
this
he
one.
wins.
If he
If he
wins.
wins.
But okay, fine. So if he wins, I still say no way. He's the best of all time.
So if he
He
has
has
4 out of
Julian.
6.
He has no Aaron. He has
Absolutely
Aaron Hernandez.
not.
Gronk
4
has
out of
been
6
gone.
isn't good enough.
This is the NFL. This isn't the
And,
NBA.
Josh, I think it's with this team is what we're
That's what I'm saying.
specifically talking
Julian
about right now.
Edelman and
Like,
all these other ends he has
Peyton
is
Manning is
nothing.
Eric Decker.
No,
both
okay,
Thomases.
all right.
I mean,
And
But
Wes
the
Welker.
Welker.
argument could be raised though. Peyton Manning could be more just a game manager. If you look at him in the game versus Indianapolis, no touchdowns, great running game. He just managed the game. So in that sense, I don't think you can say he's the best quarterback of all time if he's not literally like winning the game. If he's not putting the team on his back.
Tom Brady.
in
Well,
that
let's
case-
no. Let's go with this.
If that's
Let's
the
go with
case,
this.
then you can make an argument AJ McCarron is one of the best quarterbacks
Well,
in college. of all
Josh,
time.
let me say this.
no, because he doesn't put the
He
team on his
doesn't-
back.
Wait,
Tom puts the team on his back.
Not this year.
I got this.
Not in the playoffs this year.
A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about this also. 24-0. Tom Brady came back and won that game against Denver, and that was in Gillette Stadium. Now let's just go hypothetically speaking. If Tom Brady does this again, like let's just say Denver gets
Okay.
hot and wins the, I mean it's like with a 20+ point deficit going into halftime, and Tom Brady comes back and win it, it's done.
Okay.
Tom Brady is the best quarterback in this generation. to
Absolutely.
come. I'm sorry.
You know why? Because if he goes in and he wins, but then he loses the Super Bowl, then what has he actually done? He just beat Peyton Manning to get to the Super Bowl.
Peyton Manning, I think it's either 12 or 13 times he's been to the playoffs. He's been knocked out in the first game, whether it's the wild card or the divisional round, 8
8
times.
times.
Well, we're not talking about
Crown him king of the regular season.
Yeah.
No,
That's a lot.
I'm not saying Peyton Manning's the best of all time. We're talking about Tom Brady. here.
Patriots
Like,
win.
That's a whole nother story.
Brady's the best.
I'm taking Peyton.
Brady.
Okay,
I'm taking
no,
Peyton.
that's probably
Three. We're gonna talk about this on our Super Bowl special.
All right,
We'll
Let's
see.
move on to the NFC Championship game where the 49ers will travel to Seattle in the 12th man to face the Seahawks. San Francisco looking to go to another Super Bowl. Lost to the Ravens last year. Guys, who do you like in this ball game?
Seattle. I gotta say Seattle. People have been arguing me down since I found out that they was going to the NFC Championship. Seattle's too hot. Now, granted that the 49ers have this swag about them that's like, okay, we're still to be the best NFC team. And
The
we're gonna do
49ers
this.
don't have a swag. Colin Kaepernick has a fake swag about him.
No, but you got
Colin Kaepernick has an unnecessary,
swag, but-
unwarranted, unearned swag.
Bro, I don't know. Growing up in a Lambeau in that weather and beating the Packers,
beating the Packers?
that says a little something about you as a quarterback.
I don't know.
But the Packers defense is
I'm
not
about to say,
Yeah,
the Packers didn't have a defense. Carolina somewhat did have a defense, but now we're talking about one of the best secondary defenses in the nation. You can't. I don't think Colin is going to have a great time. Especially, first off, it's in Seattle. Let's start there first. He is horrible in Seattle. It's just not him. It's his Achilles heel. So not only that, he has to go against his secondary team. If Frank Gore cannot get them rushing yards, it's a done for 49ers. I see Seattle going into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think. Look, I love Seattle, but I'm going to take the 49ers.
What?
You know, they just, I think talent across the board, they probably have the best roster in the NFL. You look at the weapons on the offensive side of the ball, Anquan Bolden,
Gotta get the
Vernon
ball to the
Davis,
weapons.
Michael Crabtree, Frank Gore, Russell Wilson. The Seattle offense hasn't looked that good in the past couple weeks. They struggled a lot.
Yeah.
And they did. You mentioned they lost the Cardinals at home.
Yeah, I did. I didn't, but thank
Oh,
you
you
for
did.
that.
I thought
And yeah, well, you're right. Carson Palmer let a comeback. So I think Colin Kaepernick can get the job done, and I think the 49ers. They've been there. They've done that. It's not like they've never traveled to Seattle before. So I'm taking the 49ers.
No.
I'll just say
Absolutely
this.
not.
I think both quarterbacks are going to struggle against great defenses. I think Marshawn Lynch, the 49 defense is going to
Beast
lock him
mode.
up. I don't think we'll see beast mode. And I think Frank Gore, he's not going to be getting those big yards like he was in previous playoff games. That said, I will still take the Seahawks at home. I think it'll be a low-scoring game, 13-10. I take the Seahawks going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Seahawks too. And I mean, one thing I just kind of wanted to mention here is everybody wants to crown both these quarterbacks, Kaepernick and Wilson. Like whatever, they want to talk about how they're some of the best young quarterbacks, which they definitely are, but they do have, let's keep in mind, they have two of the best defenses that we've seen in recent years, especially this season, backing them. So, Harry, you mentioned it, Seattle hasn't scored a lot of points. Their offense has struggled, but, I mean, when you have that defense to fall back on, I mean, that was my fantasy defense. I know how good they are.
I just think it takes one offensive big play to win a game like this, and I think with the weapons that the 49ers have, I think they have a better shot.
What weapons? They have Kaepernick, Crabtree, and
Vernon Davis.
Bolden.
Mark my words right now on the show. It's going to come down to a last possession game, and I'm telling you, Colin Kaepernick is going to screw up, and it's going to be Seattle's game. I'm telling you, it's going to be Seattle.
All right.
Now, with that being said, we're going to go to break. We're coming right back up. We're going to have Peter Splendorio back in the studio for us for his first and last time of the semester. Stay tuned. It's The Hook.
Thanks for sticking with us on The Hook. We're now joined by our guest for the night, Peter Splendorio. Peter, how you doing?
I'm doing great, fellas. How are you guys?
Wonderful.
Great.
All right, Peter, let's get right into it with some NFL conference championships this weekend, AFC and NFC. Who do you have taking these games?
Well, starting with the AFC, I'm taking the less popular pick. I think the Patriots are going to win this game, and I have picked them as my Super Bowl favorite since the middle of the season. Here's why. Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning, all-time head-to-head, 10-4. And that carries a lot of weight with me because these guys are usually the ones running the show. The Patriots also have a top 10 rushing offense. We saw that a lot in their first-round playoff game. And they have a top 10 defense. Meanwhile, the Broncos' defense peaked months ago. It's in shambles at times. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be able to hold down Brady. Even without the receivers, that running attack is really good. Brady is a top 5 quarterback of all time. I mean, I'm not going to bet against him. You can make the case for top 3 as well. They were 12-4 this year. Controversial calls at the end of the Carolina game and at the end of the Jets game. They could be 14-2 if not for that. This is a good team. I'm not going to hold their lack of weapons back. I think that Tom Brady has enough to get it done. He beat Peyton Manning head-to-head this year, and he's done it a lot in the past. In the NFC, I'm taking the Seahawks. Even though I think the 49ers have the best roster, top to bottom, in football, really strong defense, good weapons on offense, Colin Kaepernick is a superior quarterback to Russell Wilson.
Debatable.
He is.
Yeah.
I don't think that the 49ers are going to be able to go in and win in Seattle because Seattle makes it very, very tough. It's very loud, and that defense really thrives on that 12th man. We saw Drew Brees struggle. Drew Brees is a better quarterback than Colin Kaepernick is. Therefore, I think that the Seahawks win that game, and I think we have a matchup of Seahawks versus Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Okay, and then who do you have in that?
I'm taking the Patriots because I think that Tom Brady, he has way more experience in the playoffs. And honestly, I don't see any reason why I should pick Russell Wilson, who has a much more conservative offense, and then I should pick him over Tom Brady. Yes, Seattle is great at home, but in a neutral setting, I think I'm going to take Brady, the more experienced quarterback, the more balanced offense too with the rushing attack. The passing attack has been fine, honestly. The defenses, of course, Seattle is a better one, but I like the Patriots.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to agree with you on that one, Pete.
Thank you.
I'm not going to agree with neither one of you, but
No,
back
I like
to the
to
next
hear that.
question. Pitcher Kershaw received a $215 million contract with 7 years with Los Angeles. Now, making it the highest contract signing in MLB history.
Right.
Peter, was this a smart move for the Dodgers or not?
Well, here's the thing. If you're investing $215 million in anybody, it's going to be very risky, especially a pitcher. That's why we've never seen a pitcher get these kind of numbers as far as the salary goes. If there's one guy who's worth it, I guess, it would be Kershaw because he's 26 years old going into next season. He's the best pitcher in baseball. He's never had a full season ERA over 3. He's won 2 of the last 3 Cy Youngs. In the year he didn't win it, he finished second. Last year, an ERA under 2. Pretty stellar. He's worth it. I mean, this is what people are charging nowadays for top flight players. Do you think Sin-Soo Choo is worth $130 million? Do you think that Jacoby Ellsbury is worth $150 million? You got to pay a lot to get the best, and Kershaw is the best.
We'll have to agree with you on that
All
one.
right, Pete, as a Dodgers fan, I'm stoked about the re-signing of Kershaw. So I'm going to agree with you on this one. We're going to wrap this up with a little more baseball. So A-Rod, you love to talk about this. Suspension
Sure.
now down to 162 games. Will he win in federal court? And just overall, what are your thoughts on the whole situation right now?
No, he's not going to win in federal court because there's already been a hearing with the Players Union and with the arbitrator for Major League Baseball. That's a legitimate court. They made their decision. I think the federal court will hold that up. What I take away from this whole thing is that there's still a problem with drugs in baseball. These guys didn't fail drug tests. And I think that that's really where baseball should focus their attention. People are still doing drugs and getting away with it, passing tests. Even if a whistleblower gives them away this time, there's still plenty of guys doing it. I think they need to find a way to get drugs out of baseball.
All righty, Peter. Well, thank you. It's always great having you on the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And coming up next, Josh and Harry will sit down with our next guest for the night, Thomas Bingham. Stay here. It's The Hook.
Welcome back, everybody, to The Hook. We are now joined by TSTV's Thomas Bingham. Thomas, Texas football is heading in a new direction with Charlie Strong as the new head coach. What do you make of his new coaching staff, and will potential decommits or transfers hurt this team?
Well, I mean, they did lose 8 coaches of the 9 that were here in 2013. The big one is Chris Rumpf, the defensive line coach from Alabama. He's definitely the top choice. The big addition for the coaching staff. I mean, you look at what Charlie Strong has done throughout his tenure as a head coach at Louisville. 4 consecutive bowl appearances. You know, that 2013 Sugar Bowl win against Florida. He definitely has winnings in his past and should bring that to Austin this upcoming season. I'm really excited. He's a very physical coach. I'm looking forward to seeing what he has, you know, especially since he is a defensive coach against the type of offenses that are in the Big 12. So he's definitely a good choice.
All right. Well, Thomas, we shift gears a little bit and we head to the NBA. And the Spurs are first in a tough Western Conference, bouncing back from a heartbreaking loss in the finals to the Heat. But do they have enough in the tank to make another run at the NBA championship?
I really think they do. They haven't hit their peak yet. Normally, the rodeo road trip is where they start, you know, finding their groove. They struggled early on in the season. Duncan has definitely overcome his early struggles. Marco Bellinelli has been a great offseason addition. They definitely have what it takes. You know, you got Oklahoma City. There's questions regarding Westbrook. And in Portland, there's definitely questions regarding whether they're a true candidate or not.
And Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, do you think this might be their last go at it, or they're not gonna quit until they get that title?
They're definitely not going to quit until they got the title, especially with the way Game 6 ended, Game 7 ended. They definitely will keep fighting for championships until this group of players retire.
Yeah, one of the great teams and coaches in Greg Popovich. So, Thomas, let's now go to the NFL. 2 huge games this weekend. It's the AFC and NFC championship games. Who do you like and why in these games? And then let's hear your Super Bowl winner.
Well, you got Denver and New England over at Mile High. I got the Broncos just because there's too many weapons around. Peyton Manning, you got Wes Welker, who, you know, previously played for New England. You got the Demaryius and Julius Thomas, you know, Noshawn. They got plenty of talent offensively to overcome their sloppy defense.
All right, and how about Seattle and San Francisco?
I got Seattle. You got the 12th man. You got Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. I just don't see them being able to be stopped by San Francisco this weekend.
All right. And Thomas, would you start a little debate for us? In previous block, Harry said that if Tom Brady wins this game, he will be the best quarterback of all time. Do you agree with that statement?
If he wins this game this Sunday, I would say yes, especially if he's able to get that 4th Super Bowl. If he can get 4 Super Bowls and 6 Super Bowl appearances, he will be.
That's what I like to hear, Thomas. That's what I like to hear. All right, now the Super Bowl is in Jersey, my home state. Who's taking home the crown?
I got Denver. Too much offensive talent.
Okay.
Peyton's having a record year. He's definitely determined to get that ring.
All right, well,
2nd ring.
Thanks for joining us, Thomas. That was
Thanks for
real
having
good
me.
insight. Coming up next, we're talking more NFL. Stay tuned. It's The Hook.
Thanks for sticking with us tonight on The Hook, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to wrap up the show with our favorite segments of Fastest 5 Minutes in Sports. We're going to start it off with a little buy or sell. Basically, the way this works, I make a general statement. These guys tell me if they're buying it or if they're selling it. All right, you guys ready to begin here?
Yes, sir.
First up, Arizona will make it to the Final Four. They're undefeated so far this season. Buy or selling?
I'll buy them. Aaron Gordon's the real deal. I think that front line is way too good, and the way they play defense in the tournament, that can go a long way. You know, out of the 64, 68 teams, the teams that are big enough, that have the best defense, can make it to the Final Four, and they also have some scoring. So I'll buy them.
Sale.
Oh, you're selling it? Okay.
I'm selling. I'm sorry. Arizona. Arizona, they look hot, and what I was talking with one of the guys on Wednesday is they're hot, but once they get to like the big dance or closer towards the big dance, Arizona, they fall apart for some apparent reason. And I think it's just gonna be another typical year for Arizona. They're not gonna.
Josh?
Selling like the Wolf of Wall Street while the stock is high. Arizona will not be in the Final Four at all. I think the problem is they're peaking too early. You have teams like Michigan State, Kansas, Duke, even North Carolina who are struggling right now. When tournament time hits, they'll be hot and they'll be ready to go.
You know, I mean, even when they decide who's going to be in the tournament, it's already incredibly hard to decide who's going to be in the Final Four and pick the right Final Four.
Yeah.
But I'm going to buy this right now. There's just nothing telling me that, you know, they're not going to be in the Final Four, so I'm going to buy them and even it out. Two buys, two sells. All right, next up. Peyton says he sees the light at the end of the tunnel. He will retire at the end of the 2015 season. Buy or sell?
This is tough, but I'll buy it just because I think he's going to go out on top, and I think he'll get a Super Bowl either this year or next year. You know, with the team he has, you know, they can compete for a while, and he's still at a high level, so I'll buy it.
Buying it if he wins the Super Bowl. If he wins the Super Bowl, definitely I can see him going out on top. If he does not have that Super Bowl, I can still see him playing for another 4 to 5 years in the league, trying to get that second ring.
Julian?
Whether or not he does get the Super Bowl or not, I think he's gonna. I'm buying it. What we talked about with his when he was transitioning from Indianapolis to Denver, his body isn't the same way as it used to be. You know, his body's not collaborating with his movements anymore. After he had that neck injury, it's just you've seen a good Peyton Manning, but I just don't think it's gonna last long. So, like Josh and Harry just stated, you want to have your career on a high note, and I think he'll retire by 2015.
So did you guys all buy it?
Yeah.
Well, you're all wrong. I'm selling it. No, I just think if you look at the season, it was like 55 passing touchdowns.
Exactly, yeah.
I think the season that he had this year, and I think Super Bowl, regardless of that, I mean, he has so much talent. So I think he could play for another 5 years.
Absolutely.
You know, as long as his neck's healthy. If they find something with his neck, then he'll definitely retire. But I'm selling it. You're all wrong. So next up, Carmelo Anthony will leave the Knicks, come play for the Lakers.
Love Carmelo, but he's gone. New York has just fallen apart in the first half of this season. Nothing's going right. Not only has he had to deal with the on-court issues of moving the ball, but off-court, the team is just a disaster. I think he's going to LA. LA is going to have a ping pong ball, and Kobe coming back off an injury. I like him there.
Okay, let's make it quick here, guys.
Definitely buying it. He's out of New York, want to go to better opportunities. LA looks like it's the place to be in the offseason.
Okay.
Bye. He's going.
Yeah, I'm going to make it a sweep, and I'm going to buy it.
All right.
All right, staying in the NBA, despite some recent struggles, the Heat are still the best team in the NBA.
Sell. I'm selling it.
Yeah,
Indiana.
I'm gonna sell too.
I'll sell. I'll take the Pacers.
I'm buying. They are still the best team in the NBA.
Really?
Easy.
Wow. Okay.
Even with all the injuries?
Even with all the injuries, you know, by the time playoffs hit, they are the best team. They're the team everyone's competing with.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I do
definitely
that experience is going to be a huge factor.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. And finally, LeBron will opt out and leave Miami at the end of the season.
I've been saying it for a year now. He's going back to Cleveland to join up with Kyrie Irving.
So you're buying?
I'm buying. Deion Waiters, I got a young group of guys.
I'm going
You're
with
buying
him,
too?
Buying.
I'm
Staying
selling
Cleveland.
this so hard only because if he goes back after what he did to Cleveland, his legacy is just so tarnished. Like, no one can take him seriously ever again in his entire NBA career. Absolutely. I'm selling.
Quick question.
Just off of principle.
Quick question. It's not tarnished now because he left Cleveland to go to Superstars.
Well, no, you could say he left, you know, he went to Miami, he did his thing, but to say like, oh, I want to come back now after I just shunned y'all, it's like
That
it's like
would be
it's a
Yeah,
pity
he'll get
comeback. That's what I'm saying.
But he'll probably win in Cleveland. That's why I think he'll go.
Okay, I mean, I'm going to sell this. I think he's staying in Miami. I think they're going to bring in some other people around him. They're going to kind of phase out Wade, maybe keep Bosh or phase him out as well.
Yeah.
Bring in some other guys around him. Alrighty, well, guys, let's talk about NFL a little bit here. I know we got two Texans fans over here. They got the first pick in the draft after losing 14 straight games. Who should they pick up?
You know, you never know with this Houston management. I'll go Teddy.
Please, Mr. McNair, please don't draft Johnny Manziel. go with Clowney or trade down to get more picks for your team. But absolutely, please do not draft Johnny Manziel.
Okay.
I want them to pick Teddy, not Johnny.
I'm going to go against Joshua's wishes here. I'm going to say you're going Johnny Football, hometown hero. No? No? Come on, it'd be interesting.
It would be interesting.
That's all I gotta say.
Yeah,
I would
you
love to
better
see
win.
you guys unhappy, with your NFL team. So, all righty, folks. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. We'll be back next Friday at the same time, 8 p.m. right here. Thanks for tuning in to our first ever hour-long episode. For Julian Owens, Harry Hoffman, Josh Blunt, I'm Jeff Barker. Have a good night.